Hello everyone, back to today's third video. So we're going to have a look at weather next week, 10 days in today's third video. It takes us to around the 22nd of July. We'll also have a look at the Beijing Climate Centre for the next 40 days. Very interesting to see what that show will take us well into August, into the last month of meteorological summer with today's third video. I've already done the 5-day forecast. You can find videos out here on the homepage. Just scroll down a little bit and it's above the bottom count. We've also got written version. You get to that 5 buttons at the top of the page. This morning we did a quick update just looking at the events that's coming up at the weekend, really, for you one at Silverstone Grand Prix, and also, of course, Wimbledon Finals, Brentwood Festival. So if you want to know more about that, check out that update as well. But we're going to have a look at next week, 10 days, and the heat is returning next week. So we're starting off with the GFS ensembles of the next couple of weeks. I'm just going to get a highlighter together. So the red line here is the 30-year upper air temperature average, and at the moment we're actually a little bit cooler than average. It's a little bit cooler after yesterday's deluge, just there. That's the 30-year upper air temperature average. So the next couple of days is going to be a little bit cooler, but by the weekend we're warming back up again. It's going to be turning very warm over the weekend. Early next week, just a little bit of a drop, and then it looks like temperatures are lifting up again through the course of next week. You'll notice some really quite hot outlier ensemble members next week, including that one. That's a real hot outlier. It almost goes off the scale. I think you could discount that. That's a bit over the top. But I certainly think we are going to be in for some very warm, if not potentially for a time, quite hot weather again next week. Will be total surprise. See temperatures going up above 30 degrees again next week. Down in the south above 86 Fahrenheit. So yes, the heat will be returning. Also a lot of dry weather. So after yesterday's rain, this is the ensemble for London. There's no more rain to come really through the remainder of the week into the weekend. It's sort of next week looking dry. Then we have got some precipitation spikes in the middle of next week. That might be associated with thunder. That's associated with the hot temperatures that could be lifting up through the course of next week. But overall, a lot of dry weather to come for the next week to 10 days. These are the temperature anomalies for the next week. This takes us from the 12th through to 20th of July. And a little bit warmer than average for England and Wales. Still a little bit on the cooler than average side, but Scotland expect those to trend warmer, hotter over the next few days. Precipitation anomalies for next week from the 12th to 20th of July. Really on the drier than average side through most parts of the country. So we're turning warmer and drier again. This is how the GFS is picking things up for Saturday then. This is all dealt with in the 5-day forecast, of course. We've got the high pressure ridging in from the Azores. That's the main area of high pressure down across the Azores. The Azores high is very, very ridgy this summer. Sometimes the Azores high will pull away, but it'll head off towards Bermuda, and that's when we tend to get our very cool and unsettled summers. When the Azores high is ridging in like this, constantly throwing up ridges into the west of Europe in that direction, that tends to be associated with our warmer, hotter, drier summers. And the Azores high is very ridgy this year. The Azores high sends that ridge that way. The ridge builds over the UK for a time, then it heads off to the east. As the ridge pulls away to the east, it'll bring up the air from the south, and that leads to the hot temperatures, eventually, probably, usually, thunderstorms. So it's that kind of summer with the Azores high ridging in, and we see that again on Saturday. We'll be bringing a lot of warm and dry weather down to the south. Into Sunday, that ridge is still there, producing a lot of warm, dry weather then, a little bit more on a several weekend in the north. After that, the high pressure is really building in across the country through the early part of next week. So it turns completely dry early next week. There'll be a lot of warm weather around as well, probably starting to turn quite hot in the south by the middle of next week. That high pressure beginning to slip to our east. There comes the hotter southerly southeasterly winds. Notice again we've got another heat low developing across Spain, moving into the Bay of Biscay. The heat low across Spain is always a semi-permanent feature you get in the summer. It doesn't do much to Spain because the air is so dry. But as soon as those heat lows break away, move out of Spain over the Bay of Biscay, they pick up moisture, they pick up humidity, and that then as the low pressure continues to drift northwards, leads to the thundery breakdown. So by Thursday 20th of July, we've got a thundery low here sitting over the top of the UK. These are the upper air temperatures, looking very warm, if not hot again, through the middle part of next week. As I say, temperatures could easily be reaching 30 degrees across the south through the middle part of next week, well into the 80s Fahrenheit, albeit with an increasing risk of thunderstorms. And then after that, to the end of next week, that thundery low starts to drift away into the North Sea. And then we start to do it all over again, actually. There comes the next ridge from the Azores High. The Azores High being just there, of course. Here comes the next ridge, breaking away from the Azores High. So it's a case of rinse, repeat, probably after thundery breakdown for the middle part of next week. We then build the ridge back in with a lot of dry and warm weather into the second half of next week. That's for GFS. This is the ECMWF, and again we have this ridge building from the Azores High over the weekend, bringing lots of dry and warm weather to the south. Always a little bit more unsettled up to the north. Into the early part of next week, high pressure becomes increasingly influential. There it is, sitting over the top of the country on Tuesday. That will be producing almost universally dry weather, glorious sunshine, and those temperatures will be at least into the upper 20s Celsius. Wouldn't rule out 30 degrees there down in the south. Then, through the middle part of next week, well, here comes another thundery low. That's drifting up out of the Bay of Biscay, heading into the UK, so that could be threatening thunderstorms to the south on Wednesday, but it will be hot. That thundery low is still close to the south on Thursday, but it doesn't push up northwards across the country as the GFS do. Actually, for most parts of the country, we're maintaining this strong and stable ridge from the Azores High out here over to our area of high pressure across eastern parts of Europe. There's the upper air temperatures. They're looking hot, so temperatures, yes. For the southeast there, temperatures could be up to 32 degrees, 90 Fahrenheit on Thursday next week. Elsewhere, probably not quite that hot, but it certainly is looking a lot hotter again through the course of next week. And that ridge with the ECMWF is maintained, so unlike with the GFS where we get a thundery breakdown and then probably turn a bit cooler and fresher second half next week, no, the ECMWF is just keeping this high pressure ridging from the Azores towards eastern parts of Europe, so it just remains dry and hot really throughout next week with the ECMWF. That's a proper heat wave, several days of hot conditions with no breakdown except for scattered thunderstorms in the south. And day 10 takes us to Saturday 22nd of July, and it still is looking hot. The heat is maintained. The ridge from the Azores extends through the UK into Eastern Europe. That's a prolonged hot spell of weather. All next week will be hot with the ECMWF. Remember, the GFS is going for a thundery breakdown midweek. So a bit of uncertainty in terms of how things develop in the second half next week, but certainly the early and middle part of next week turning increasingly warm, eventually becoming hot. Does that just last a day or two and then it's a thundery breakdown again? Or do we extend in a ridge and lock in hot weather for several days, as the ECMWF is hinting at there? Watch this space, we'll keep you updated. Finally, just having a look at the Beijing Climate Centre for the next 40 days. These are the 500 millibar heights broken down into 10-day periods. The first 10-day period taking us from today, the 11th, or yesterday I should say, 11th of July through to the 20th. And here comes the Azores High building in across the UK, above average heights down to the south and southwest. Low pressure is up to the north, so it's a bit more unsettled there. But essentially, it's this ridge from the Azores High that is dominating the weather increasingly in the next 10 days. The second 10-day period takes us from the 21st through to the 30th of July, and above average heights are sitting there over the top of the UK, also extending over here to our east. The jet stream and the low pressure, the cooler Atlantic weather, that's pushed well to the north. So that looks like a bit of a heat wave really there for the final 10 days of July. Lots of dry weather, probably quite hot as well. That would be proper summer weather there to close out July. And look at this, it continues into the first 10 days of August. So this takes us from the 31st of July to the 9th of August, which is days 21 to 30. And again, above average heights are bridging through the UK from the Atlantic into eastern parts of Europe. The rain-bearing systems with the jet stream, they're pushed well to our north. So the early part of July looks like it would probably be quite hot and dry there as well. That's a couple of weeks of classic dry weather, possibly a heat wave going on there. The final 10 days, however, shows a breakdown. This takes us from the 10th through to the 19th of August. And we're losing the above average heights. They're sort of slipping away into central parts of Europe. Low pressure is in the Atlantic or below average heights. And we're beginning to turn things unsettled, probably via quite an extensive thundery breakdown, I would have thought. But eventually there, as we go into the middle part of August, it looks like it's turning probably quite a lot cooler and more unsettled too. That will probably be a fairly welcome relief, actually, after the earlier 2 weeks. So it looks like the summer continues, really. It's been a good summer so far down in the south. That's been as good further north, but I think we might begin to redress the balance a little bit next week and start to push some of this hotter, drier, sunnier weather further northwards as well through the course next week. But always, of course, the heat really is in the south. Lots of dry and warm weather coming up. Probably another heat wave next week. It may only last a day or two, or it may be something more extended. And if we take the Beijing Climate Centre at face value, it looks like this is going to be a continuation of the pattern through the remainder of summer, or certainly to the middle part of August anyway, with plenty more dry weather to come. When we did begin to weather the summer forecast, we did predict probably the best summer since 2006 overall, and I think that prediction is increasingly looking like it's going to come off with a continuation of more very warm, dry weather at times. We said it probably won't be a classic summer. We said not a 76, not a 1995, because although very warm through the summer, there would always be breakdowns and interludes of cooler, more unsettled weather. That side of things is coming off as well. Although we are having a good summer, particularly for the south, you wouldn't say it's a classic, you wouldn't say it's a 1976 drought summer. So overall, the Heatwave summer forecast is holding up remarkably well, I think, so far. And I see no reason, look ahead to the second half of summer, why that shouldn't continue to be the case. Right, don't forget to check out 5-day forecast if you haven't yet done so. And also, if you're interested in those events like British Grand Prix and so on, check out that update too. That's all for now. Thanks for watching.